Good evening, everyone. It's nice to have people in the audience this evening. It is Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee. We're meeting at Gloucester High School Library. I'll call this meeting to order and state that the mission for Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners. And I ask that you join me in this. And to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, AI.
We'll do introductions.
Stephanie DeLisi, recording secretary.
Keegan Jewell, Vice President of the Board. Martin Crackdale, President of the Board.
Jeremy McKean, School Committee.
Kathy Clancy, School Committee.
Melissa Price, School Committee. Laura Weason, School Committee.
Ben Lomas, Superintendent.
Amy Pascarello, Assistant Superintendent.
The next item of business is oral communications. I'd like to read the description of oral communications. The public shall have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with the permission of the chair. Persons speaking under oral communications shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the recording secretary. And I also want to say that we will not be taking any oral communications on the superintendent search process, as we will be conducting the interview with Amy Pascarello this evening. The search process has provided multiple opportunities for feedback, and there will be an additional opportunity to provide feedback from tonight's interview on the front page of the Gloucester Schools website. So if anybody is here and would like to speak under oral communications, please do so.
It's not a mic, but I'll stand with the phrases. Dan Graham, 1 Bickford Way. So number one, I just want to ask the committee to recognize and thank all of those who ran in our recent election, those who succeeded and those who were unable to fill positions. Regardless, as a community, we're thankful for your commitment to our community and genuinely appreciate everyone's efforts work and care for Gloucester and our kids. Secondly, I just want to note that yesterday we had a phenomenal professional development day. I don't have the numbers. Amy, how many staff?
78 staff.
78 staff provided professional development for our collective staff. So when I go back to last year, we had lots of conversations about the brain trust and the intelligence and the experience within our community. And it was just a source of pride for me that I wanted to share for you that 78 of our staff members were able to contribute internally to make our schools a better place for our students. And I just want to make sure we acknowledge that it was an exceptional professional development day. And I'm just filled with pride. Mr. Lemus is introduced this year as a year of gratitude. And so in the context of that, Mr. Lemus, I just want to say I have gratitude that we looked internally and that we really are focusing on the positives right now and internally what makes us great. And that has done, I think, what you're promoting with the gratitude is it has spread to make our community a better place. So I just want to make sure we acknowledge that the professional development district-wide yesterday was amazing and much appreciated by staff.
Thank you for those comments. Thank you very much. I just want to also say that Keith Minio is not with us this evening. He has a child at home, so he's not coming. And the mayor also isn't able to attend. And of course, we have Bill Melvin online. Sorry, Bill, you want to say you're here? Forgot in the roll call.
He's muted. Bill, you're muted. Can you unmute?
Yes, I'm here and I'm thankful to be here tonight.
Anybody else like to speak under oral communications?
Could I?
Sure, of course.
Would you like me to?
Yeah, just come right up. over here.
Okay.
It's a psychological.
Okay, my name's Leon Malik. I'm a school bus driver for the city of Gloucester. And we've had a problem for a number of years of the cars going through our red lights on the buses. Last year, I probably had a child miss getting hit by 6 inches as a car came around another one. And last week, we've been on our boss about trying to get the police to get down there. Last week, I had a police officer follow me up and down, because there's 4 of us that go up and down Washington Street, which is the most busiest place for Beaman and Plum Cove. And he caught a person down at Granite Street, went through my red lights as the kids were running. And we found out later on, I guess the deal that Laurie Francis had made with the chief was everybody's getting red. There's no more, there's no more warnings. Well, I guess he gave her a warning. And this is what happens all the time. It's when, and the law was last December, the people up at the State House passed a law that you could finally put cameras on the side of the buses after Peabody and Salem had shown there were 1,200 people had gone through their lights in 3 months. And what I'm hearing now is when Laurie Francis last spring, when she did her budget, she asked and she showed, I want to put cameras on our buses. I talked to Melissa at Market Basket last summer when she was getting signatures, and she said that you people unanimously approved the cameras on the buses. That's what you told me in front of Market Basket. I asked you that we
recommended it in the budget to go
yeah,
forward.
yeah, that's what I'm
that's a
saying.
little
You, all
different.
right, no, you recommended it.
Yeah.
Now, our question now, because the drivers are so frustrated, and what happens now, what happens when I get a kindergarten, first, second grader goes up over the hood of somebody's car? You know, and people nowadays do not care one iota about that. There's another bus driver here with me. I got ran today, and so didn't she. This is not just I get run 4, 5, 6 times a week. And, you know, I realize the police, they can't follow all 21 buses around on their routes. But people have no consideration what the law is. Now, this, like I said, the state of Massachusetts gave us the opportunity to put cameras on the sides of buses. And then if someone goes through, Laurie just sends the thing over, the videotape over to the police department, and you'll get a ticket in the mail for $250. And it's not even the driver, it's the owner of the car. And what we're here tonight is what's happened to, it's probably around $25,000 to put cameras on our buses, so one child doesn't get killed. You know, and we found out that we spent $180,000 on lifts for the fire department and the DPW to lift up their trucks, but we can't spend $25,000 to keep the children in this city safe. Now, it's not your, maybe you had no control over where the money went to spending, but I don't know if you can put any pressure to bring that back to where we can install these things on these buses. Because right now, you've got 4 to 6 between, we've had a lot of problems, and Mr. Loomis knows, with our director, okay?
Sorry.
Okay, well, I'm not bringing that up, but what's happening is, but with this, she's been 100% on board. She's wonderful about it, and she's frustrated too. But you've got 4 to 6 drivers that are ready to say, I'm gonna leave.
Okay,
And if 4 to 6 drivers leave, you don't have transportation. And whether you go look for Salter or NRT or another company, they don't have drivers to come here.
Okay, so I hear you loud and clear. I think we all hear you loud and clear. We know that, as you said, it's on the priority list for, the transportation director.
I'm just gonna recommend that we send it back to BNF and have a discussion.
Yeah.
I don't know that this is a money issue. I think it's more of a collaboration issue with the police department. And we just,
right now,
we need to
she's-
follow up with it.
Right now, Laurie told me she's got no problem with the police, cause we talked, and I said to Laurie, I know when you send the video over and they look at, when this first starts, they may get 4, 5, 6 in a week. Once it winds up in the Times and finds out that some man or woman was charged $250, you're gonna see people, it come to, you might get one a week. And the whole
So
thing
we're-
is, on the police station, I know they don't wanna take the time to look at the video and what have you like that. But if you've got an officer on the desk that's overnight, after 1 o'clock when all the bars closed. And, I think that he's got time to watch a 5-minute video of the bus going.
Okay, without objection, we'll refer it to the Building and Finance Subcommittee, which is the committee that will be able to talk about that.
Okay,
Okay,
all right, because like I said, you've got people that are just ready to walk and then you don't have transportation,
thank
you
you.
know?
Thank you.
They're gonna either retire and get out of here or,
Okay, the
or leave.
3 minutes are up, but we definitely heard you.
Okay.
Okay.
all right, thank
Thank
you.
you. for
Thank
that
you.
message. Okay, anybody else want to speak under oral communications?
Nobody online.
Seeing none, and seeing no one online, although there are many people attending online. Okay, next item of business is recognitions. Anybody have anything they would like to recognize?
Just the amazing work of the PTOs at the schools yesterday at the bake sale. So it's something you look forward to, along with your I voted sticker, and they did a wonderful job, so, yeah.
I don't know if I'm gonna get the opportunity to say this later, but I just wanted, it's regarding the superintendent search. I just want to say thank you to all that participated in the interviews and the feedback process. We got a lot of good information back. I know it took time out of your days. Your voices are being heard. I truly appreciate the efforts that were done to get us to this point where we are tonight, knowing that we have information from stakeholders that we didn't get to observe, but that we now know about. So huge kudos to the many that participated.
Thanks to Alicia Mellon from
I know, yeah, for putting it together.
facilitating this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to belabor, I'm not going to talk a lot, but I just want to acknowledge the acknowledgement of the preschool program that I assume you probably have in your report. And but that's really fabulous targets. So I just want to preview that so you can get better information.
More on the preschool, and also I'll have more on the professional development day that you organized and led, which really, as Dan said, was just a fantastic thing. So.
Okay, next item of business is our Gloucester High School Student Advisory Council. Thank you for being here.
So to start, Gloucester High School started a fishing club where they plan to connect with local fishermen and business owners to plan fishing related events. And then on Monday, the teachers had their 12th annual bowling tournament. There were 85 participants, including staff, administration, and police officers, and all the proceeds were for Staley Foundation. And the anchor program teachers continued their winning streak. The GHS anchor program is holding a food drive until November 21st, and they're looking for non-perishable breakfast items as donations. The baseball team is having their 5th annual food drive with the help of Coach Gentile, and they've gotten over 1,000 pounds of food and are donating all to the open door. And NHS is still collecting for their Thanksgiving baskets, which will be sold for $35. And yesterday, the senior class had a very successful bake sale at the election.
DECA is going to the State House on Friday for the annual DECA Day on the Hill. The semi-formal is this Monday at the Black Swan. Students have to arrive here at 4:30 for the bus that leaves at 5. We had our Alice Trail today, it went pretty well. The Talent Club is doing a pasta drive. A pasta will be donated to the open door. There is a student art show at Cranes Estate this weekend, and there's a football game this Friday against Auburn, and the theme is fishermen.
I think we just want to clarify the the anchor winning streak, the anchor teachers winning streak. I believe it's the first time this year. We'll look into that. I don't want them to get really big heads. Thank you both.
Are you taking for the Thanksgiving baskets? Are you looking for donations?
Yes, we
And
are.
where do we drop, is there a list and where do we drop off food?
I don't know exactly, but I would contact Miss Bennery.
This, all right? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here. Thank you for your report, as always. Good night. Okay. Our business is we are going to do our interview.
Step aside. Move on the back.
So for the public, the interview process from the school committee is always a public interview. The previous forums for the stakeholder interviews are not because they are not public bodies. So those were, well, people were welcome to attend and welcome to provide feedback, of which we've gotten a report on the feedback. So the way this will run is we'll have Amy give us an opening statement. Each of us and Bill will have the opportunity to ask you questions. And if you feel a need for follow-up for more information or to expand on the question, please feel free to do so. And then we'll have a closing statement. Anybody have any questions or? No?
How are we gonna, will it be organized? Are we just gonna go down the row
I think
or?
we'll go down the road.
Okay.
Unless Stephanie has a different idea. Just down the road? Yeah. Okay. Begin with Laura.
Well, should we, let's Amy do a statement.
Oh, sorry. Speaking of it.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. I'm very happy to finally be here. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to possibly become the next superintendent of Gloucester Public Schools. I've been opening all of my, or most of the panels with my why. So I'll start that, I'll do that here as well. As assistant superintendent, I'm in charge of the new teacher orientation day, new staff orientation, actually. And I always do, or for the last 3 years, I have done a presentation about finding your why. And there's a theory called the golden circle. There's a lot of people who know what they do. They often know how they do it, but they don't always identify why they are doing it. And it could be anything. It could be selling computers, it could be teaching, it could be anything. But the theory of the golden circle is that if you start with your why, your how and your what become more powerful because it grounds you in why you're here and gives you a stronger purpose. So I always teach the new staff that I want them to identify their why. And I do that by telling them a little bit about my why. So I'm going to start back here. I've always told the story up to a certain point, and going through this process, I've continued it and share that as I get there. So the question would be, why do I teach? Why did I become a teacher? Why do I want to be in education, right? And so my why goes back to probably my time teaching in Virginia. Right out of college, I got a job teaching in Connecticut, Darien, Connecticut. I taught there 2 years, 5th grade, and loved it. I went to the University of Massachusetts and went to Virginia because that's where I got hired. They had a career fair, and I packed my bags and moved to Connecticut. I knew nobody there, but I was very happy to teach 5th grade. I then got engaged and moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, and I started teaching 5th grade there. And as a young teacher, first year in Virginia, I was happy in my classroom, but there was always a student who kind of ran through the hallways, and it was always a talk of teachers, and it was a student that had a lot of difficulty. She came from a difficult home. She didn't always have food. She wasn't always clothed appropriately. She cleaned, those kind of things. And she had a lot of behaviors, and I heard her name throughout the school all the time. When I always tell this story, I use one particular name because I want to protect her identity. I'm sorry, Melissa, I always use the name Melissa, but it's clearly not you.
Well, that makes sense in the comments now, because I'm like, what's Melissa's story?
Yeah.
I was hoping it wasn't about me.
Yeah, so if I changed the name, it wouldn't have made sense.
That's okay.
So I'm sticking with the way I always say it.
Yeah.
So I would always hear Melissa this, Melissa in the hallway, their behaviors, all kinds of things. And I thought as a young teacher, I don't know if I could handle it if I had Melissa in my classroom, and I was nervous. At the end of my first year there, the principal called me into his office and said, I need you to go down to 4th grade because of the numbers. I need you to not be a 5th grade teacher next year. You're going to go to 4th grade because we have an opening and we shuffled the classrooms. So I went down to 4th grade and got my class list, and sure enough, Melissa was on my list. And I thought, okay, I've got to do something because it looks like every teacher before me has had trouble with Melissa. So I reached out to mentors and colleagues, and I read books, I did all kinds of things, and I made a very significant effort to create a classroom where Melissa was safe, where Melissa felt heard, and wasn't picked on, but she was picked on very much. At recess, we talked a lot about building a community. We talked a lot about sticking up for each other and not being a bystander, to stick up and honor our peers. And within my small classroom, Melissa was safe. On the playground, people picked on her, and students from my classroom picked on her or asked her to do something else. I wouldn't say they all became her best friend. They knew her and respected her. I did such a great job that at the end of that year, my principal called me into his office again and said, I want to give Melissa another good year. She had a good one this year. I'm going to have you go back to 5th grade and keep your entire class intact. So I looped with the whole class so Melissa would have 2 full years that she wasn't teased as much. She had a safe place. She was able to learn. And so I always at the beginning of every staff orientation say my why is because I want to create, I find it very important to create a safe place for all the Melissas. And until this process, my story always ended there. Thinking about why would I want to be superintendent of any school system, particularly Gloucester Public Schools, because it's a really big job, and it's a lot of pulls in different directions. And I've done a lot of thinking about it. And I think about moving on to being a principal of East Gloucester. I pride myself of making not just a classroom, but the entire community of East Gloucester a place where the Melissas were safe. And the Melissas came in different forms. Some of them came with significant diagnoses. Some of them came out of hospital treatment. Some of them had trauma at home or loss of a family member. But I always wanted to create a community where any student that had those challenges was safe and was able to learn and grow. So why would I want to be the superintendent? Well, wouldn't it be nice if we had a district that did just that? So my why is to create a space for students that have all kinds of struggles and learn and grow alongside students that are typical also being challenged to learn. So I've opened each panel with that. That's my one. That's my Melissa story.
Wow, that's hard to follow. That's quite.
So picking up on that why, and our why, I think for all of us, is to create the Gloucester public school system where students are safe and we improve teaching and learning and students are emotionally supported and all of those things. And one of the ways that we can do that in Gloucester is to improve relations between educators and administration. This is something you've spoken about as a priority. I heard you talk about this at the parent and community stakeholders meeting when I was in the audience. And that it's a priority to sort of put the wounds heal the wounds from last year, so we can all work together and put students at the forefront. And I share that priority. And what I see is that unfortunately the union leadership continues to use divisive tactics. And they're tactics that I know many of their own members don't agree with. So my question to you is, how do you reach out and continue to build relationships with educators who are eager to heal and move on in the interests of Gloucester students while union leadership continues to use a negative and divisive strategy?
So building relationships are so tricky, right? It's so important to not rely on one avenue building relationships. It is very important that any superintendent in this role, the next superintendent, works with union leadership to rebuild trust and rebuild a connection. Very important that that happens, and that will happen at its own pace. But it's also important for a superintendent to rebuild and reach out to connect with all staff and all community, parents and community partners. And I think having been in the district for a long time, this is my 11th year here, I'm fortunate in that I have many, many relationships throughout the community. And although I do feel it is extremely important to rebuild the relationship between administration and union leadership, I would not rely on that solely to rebuild trust among the entire community. It's very important that I reach out to the many people that I already have relationships with to hear their points of view and to build that trust back as well. It's also important for me to reach out to people I don't have relationships with yet and to work on building those relationships with trust, for trust and understanding and transparency. So it's not a one-way avenue to fix this problem. It needs to be a whole community come back together. There has to be reach out. The next superintendent needs to work building connections with parents as well. I'm learning more and more through this process that a lot of parents were hurt through what happened last year. And to build the trust back with the Gloucester School District, together, union and administration, to build trust of the community. So that it has to happen in so many ways. And I would do that by having office hours. I would go up and talk to people. I would sit in maybe at a staff meeting, or I would sit in at a common planning time and talk to people. The only way we're going to build trust is step by step at a time, little by little. In order to prepare for this process, it's hard to do. I took the avenue of reading a lot of leadership books. So one of the descriptions about trust is if you imagine a marble jar, and you don't build trust by grand gestures. You build trust by little moments. Asking somebody, how is your mother doing? I know she was sick. What can I do to help you with this challenging student in your classroom? Those kind of things. And each time that happens, a little marble goes in the jar. And if you have a full marble jar, you have a nice equilibrium and we have some trust and we're working well together. The trouble is when you break trust or trust is broken, it's never one marble jar taken out at a time. I kind of feel like last November, we almost smashed the marble jar for whatever reason. And so it's going to take a long time to fill that up. And it's going to fill up faster with some people than others. So with union leadership, it might take longer to fill that marble jar. Might not, I don't know. We've got to keep working. But that's not the only avenue we have to keep working. It has to be reaching out to everybody, the community. And just to repeat, I feel like the amount of relationships I already have and the eagerness to build more would help with that.
Thank you. I was going to ask you a question on leadership, but I've heard a little bit about that, and I know we don't have a lot of opportunity tonight to ask a lot of questions, so I'm going to go to management.
Okay.
At our last meeting, we received a report about O'Malley. Talking about the different tests that we're taking and where we're at as far as student improvement. And if you remember correctly, I was a little bit upset, right? So, and I'm going to be specific to the slide where it showed, state average, and we're a little bit below. This is kind of what's in my thought process when I'm asking this question.
Is that the growth slide, growth slide or
It's
achievement?
the MCAS.
Does it say SGP or achievement?
I'm going to show you.
That's
I can
SGP.
show everybody.
Yeah.
It's this. I mean, this is just what I'm kind of referring to, but there's other
Yep, I got it.
information throughout the slideshow that we saw.
Yeah.
So, with an obvious concern of even just at the middle school, but as the school as a whole, I'm gonna ask this question. are you satisfied with the current district's performance? Why or why not? And looking back, meaning looking back over the past couple of years that you've been very involved in this conversation with O'Malley, is there something you should replicate or might have done differently, knowing that you would be superintendent as opposed to assistant superintendent, because that's a different level. And as you know, I'm talking about how tier 2 intervention has gone away, and I've been asking for a year and a half now, like, how do we bring that back? So I'm looking to see what your response is to reacting to the report that we got, and what your process would be going forward, knowing we have this information.
So that's a
It's a big
multi-layered question.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's good. I'm gonna try to hit all the points.
Yeah.
So, in my role as assistant superintendent, I'm extremely proud of the curriculum work we have done at O'Malley. The level of teacher involvement in selecting high quality instructional materials and then to adopt within in the school. I'm very proud of that. We are by no means done. We're further along with ELA than math, and we're even further along in math than social studies, and we have just begun health and community. So that's going to be an ongoing process. But I am really proud of the amount of participation and ownership that the teachers are taking, and administrators there. They are working extremely hard. Change is hard, and they are doing it all in service of making the world better for their students. So I am particularly proud of that. Is the achievement where it needs to be? Absolutely not. We have ways to go. But by starting by getting teacher involvement and improving the curriculum, that was in place. Some was in place, some was a little different from classroom to classroom. It depends on the topic, depends on what we're talking about. But to have a consistent curriculum that's high quality in place and have teachers starting to take ownership of it, and particularly ELA making it more of their own, so they can differentiate and start to implement some tier 2 interventions into that in the classroom with what we have, is great. So what would I do different as superintendent? As superintendent, Ben has done a very good job of acknowledging or setting a very high bar of 80% proficient and with 60% growth. I am completely on board that growth is the way we get there. If we look at our district in comparison to the state, not many, if any, no, they're not at 80%. That doesn't mean that's not our long-term goal. So I agree with that. I think what I would do different is probably set shorter term goals of where we would get from one year to the other. When I was principal at East Gloucester, that's how we did it, and we did achieve some nice growth. For example, in literacy, when I got there, according to Dibble score, and so that's their proficiency in phonemic awareness. As a school, they were at 45% proficient. And so we set very small goals. And I said, okay, well, after the first year, we're going to be over 50. And I think we hit about 53 or 54 after a year. And then we celebrated and said, great, good job. But next year, we're going to be 60. And then we got to 65. When I left, we were scratching at 80, we're at 78%. So yes, we need to have that long-term goal. I don't disagree with the current superintendent's vision of that. I think to make it more attainable and feel like teachers can get there is to have shorter steps along the way. So that's what I would do different. Not that he's not doing it now, but I would do it more publicly, and I would do it more just so to celebrate each little step along the way. And I think success begets success, right? So if we celebrate, we've come this far. Let's celebrate that. Bring it back to O'Malley. Let's celebrate that O'Malley. We have consistent curriculum in the core major subjects. Let's celebrate that our student growth is in line and in this year starting to get closer to the state. Let's celebrate what we have, but we're not done. We're not going to be satisfied till we do that. Right? So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my question is, one of my questions, what advantages do you think come with the superintendent role by you having been in Gloucester Public Schools for 10 years? And do you see disadvantages because you've been there?
So I think, I mentioned it a little earlier, but being in a district for over a decade, I know a lot of people, so I have a lot of relationships. I actually think we leaned on those relationships quite a bit during the strike to help build trust and come to understanding. So I am extremely proud of the relationships I have built in Gloucester. There are people that I have had significant disagreements with, and I still respect them, and I do believe they respect me. And we have always come back to the table with, we are here for the students, and we are here to do what's right for them. So I think walking into a superintendency role with bring all of those relationships and experience of being in Gloucester is a tremendous benefit, in my opinion. I also know quite a bit of the history of Gloucester, at least going back a decade. And I can show more of an understanding of like the culture of our community and what the values are of the community. Yeah, so as what would be a detriment for being it, I'm not sure. I'd like to say nothing, but I would tell you the most challenging part of it would be to identify myself separate from the current superintendent or the one before that, or as a principal, right? To establish myself as the superintendent, that would be the largest challenge, to take my role to transform it into the top leader of the district, right? And to establish myself as not just the curriculum person, or not just I still get called the principal of East Gloucester, which I am so proud of being, but like the challenge would be to learn and grow into the new role, which I'm very eager to do.
Thank you. Sharon?
Thank you for taking this interview. It's wonderful to have you. Thinking about all the Melissas, thinking about, public schools take everyone. We have a lot of vulnerable minority populations. And so I'm thinking about the adversarial nature of our federal administration. I'm thinking about our LGBTQAI students, or plus students. I'm thinking about our sons and daughters of immigrants or grandchildren of immigrants or immigrants themselves. So what kind of focus do you have on kind of our overlooked, well, not overlooked population, but populations that may be under fire from the federal and then the state level?
Yeah, so all of our students need to feel safe here, right? That this is like, when I say all the Melissas, I mean all the Melissas. They all have to have a trusted adult. They all need to have somebody they can look to for support. And to have an understanding of the different challenges that people from like our community has, right? And I have a different challenge than somebody else, right? So a student that is an English language learner has different challenges and worries than someone that is not. So to understand those challenges and to be respectful of them and mindful of them, and be aware of the federal and state challenges that are coming, or the worries of them that are out there, and to reassure our families that we are here for students to be safe. We are here for students to come into our schools and learn. I think that's very important for all students. They need to have a place where they can be who they are, and most importantly, have a trusted adult, hopefully more than one, where they can go to and talk to about issues and challenges. It's also important that our families feel supported, that we have outreach, so that families have, with SNAP benefits being in question now, our food service is doing the best they can. We connect with Open Door. One of the things I am amazingly proud of Gloucester is as a whole is when times get tough, we take care of our people, right? So if you think back to COVID, we were giving bagged lunches and breakfasts to go home to all students, free, amazingly. And when we go back to the strike, we had people going out and there was drive-through pickup food for students. Like we, in Gloucester, we take care of all of our people, and it doesn't matter the color of your skin or your orientation. It matters that you're part of our community. And that's one of the amazing things about Gloucester and one of the reasons why I would love to stay right here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Bill.
Yes, Amy, thanks for joining us tonight. Outside of the strike last year, I think the big issue that we saw was in the spring. You know, we had some issues with some behavioral issues at O'Malley, and I'm just trying to get you to maybe talk to that for a few minutes and say, you know, is that issue kind of under the surface, and what other guardrails or what do you see that's maybe a little bit innovative that we can do to kind of help the principals, vice principals, dean of students kind of deal with those types of issues as they come up at the various education levels, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school.
So we've talked so far about raising student achievement and, you know, raising the bar, and all of that's extremely important. But it's not going to happen if our students aren't safe and feeling emotionally supported, right? So speaking of to O'Malley last year, there were some incidents that were very publicized and were not good. But what we have done as a result is we've had a deep dive of what the needs are. We have invested quite a bit of money towards developing special education programs to support students so that they have stronger supports to get their needs met. Because when students feel safe and their needs are being addressed, I'd like to say met, but at least addressed, they're able to be available to learn. And if we're not doing those basic things, we're going to see more and more behaviors. We also are reaching out with community partners to get student support, whether it be home-based mental health support if they need it, or other supports. I think is very important to make sure that they are getting support both in school and at home. Other things we're doing at schools are the behavior support teams. We've developed behavior support teams at each school to look at the specific needs of those schools, because what is a need, honestly, the needs of O'Malley last year are very different than the needs of O'Malley this year. One, student population has changed a little bit. Two, our programs are better developed, so we're meeting the needs of students in a stronger manner. And you know, there's more attention to it. We're working on that, but so the behavior support teams are the boots on the ground to look at the behavior data of each student at the time, and to make suggestions and look for trends and to find professional development to really support teachers on how to better meet the needs of the students. We also really need to reach out to parents, we are reaching out to parents, but to continue to reach out to parents and ask for their partnership, and to really support students' needs both in school and at home. I said this in a former panel, but I think it's worth saying. The level of social media that is in our students' hands I think is destructive. And sometimes an incident that is a one incident is amplified over and over again, and that makes it feel more unsafe. That's not to say there aren't significant things that happened last year at O'Malley, but they absolutely were amplified by social media, and that doesn't help the feeling of being safe. Yes, what I would do is I would continue to lean on the behavior support teams to look at the boots on the ground and the current data. I would reach out to parents for support and collaboration, and I would look to our special education programs and our adjustment counselors and our mental health supports to make sure they have what they need. And all of that in service of making sure the students feel safe and they can access the curriculum, access the school day, access friends, be an active part of the community.
Great, thank you.
Melissa has a follow.
So kind of a follow-up, because it's on the same idea, the same topic as
Yeah.
the student behavior. I like your response to that answer. So I'm gonna ask you, which I know is something that you feel very passionate about, is accountability. So through all that work that you just talked about with the support staff and PD to focus in and zone in on what the issues are that creating a child to misbehave. Is there any changes to our current practices that you would implement to hold students more accountable for the behavior that's going on in the classroom? And I say this because I have staff that reaches out to me and tells me what the behaviors that are happening in the classroom and what can they do. And I just say, you have to talk to administration. But do you see any change in the response to the behaviors that are going on in the classroom as a regular basis? Teachers feel frustrated, there's not enough intervention, and it's becoming the norm to have outbursts in the classroom.
Yes, so that is actually work that I just started to open that conversation, particularly at O'Malley. And the first thing that I think has to happen is to have some sort of a calibration of accountability. To make sure that an offense that happens in this class or this grade level it doesn't have to be the exact, but it needs to be a relatively consistent consequence. So for example, if a student was vaping in 7th grade, the consequence should be similar, maybe not exact, to if they were vaping in 8th grade. Like whoever the assistant principal is, or the principal is, or if it's the high school versus O'Malley, it should be relatively consistent. Because anybody that studies behaviors know that when you have consistent consequences, it makes it, and predictable consequences, it makes it better you can control the behaviors and decrease them more. So I would want to have a consistent or calibration of what are the behaviors. So if a student talks back to a teacher in English class and they say the very same thing in math class, if one teacher ignores it and the other one throws them out of the room, that's an unpredictable reaction for the student, and they're not knowing really what the expectations are. So we should have some conversations, and those would happen in those behavior support teams I'm going to use O'Malley because you used it, but at whatever school.
Yeah.
At whatever school, when a student does this, what is the realm of what the reaction should be? Do we say we don't talk like that, or do we kick them out of class, or do we call it they should come to a consensus of what is appropriate in their school. And I did this at East Gloucester with PBIS. We talked about expected behaviors and not expected behaviors. When do you call for support? What is a low level behavior that could be addressed within the classroom by the teacher? What is something that could be ignored because it's really low level as just attention seeking? And when do you call for help? And when do we say it's time for you to leave the classroom? And we calibrated that within the school, and we were able to decrease the number of behavior referrals. So what we need to do that is at each school, because it really is school specific, we should be doing that with our behavior support team so that we are calibrating what is the reaction to each behavior. And there are some things that can be handled in the classroom. And there definitely are some things that we need to reach out and have support from outside the classroom. But it should be consistent. Because an unpredictable world for a student that already feels unstable or unsupported, they're not going to be safe to access anything.
Sort of a follow-up on this too, but should I just go to my question, or can I do my follow-up?
You do follow.
So just as another follow-up around this, one of the partners, of course, that you would turn to would be the families and the parents.
Absolutely.
And I know that unfortunately, that is not always a place where the schools are finding support in dealing with these behaviors. So when you have these very difficult behaviors in a classroom or in a building, and you're not getting parental support, which I know is happening, how, I mean, how can you possibly, what can you do? What can you really do?
So part of that calibration is also on how and when do we reach out to families, right? And if it is a behavior that is something that you would typically reach out to a family, we should be reaching out to them. If they're not responding in the way we are hoping, that's one thing, but I don't think we give up reaching out. We continue to reach out to families, we continue to ask their support. And, you know, if it was an extreme case and there was no, we might have to take it to another level of some sort of neglect, but I would, much before that, I would want continued communication, even if it is, I mean, as a former principal, I've had my emails blocked and stop calling me, and I just keep calling, I'm gonna keep calling, and we're gonna come into the meeting, we need to have this conversation. We need to be persistent, we need to say, this is important. Your child's education is extremely important. And because of whatever the situation is, it's getting in the way of their education, and we need to talk about this. And how can we collaborate the school and the home to make it happen? It won't always work, but we can't give up. It's not possible for us to. We can offer services within the school if we need to. We have a lot of partnerships with community resources, whether it be in-home services or connecting with support therapists within the school system. It would depend on each specific case. And our teachers do a great job of trying really hard to reach out, and our assistant principals do, and they do get frustrated when there's no response, and I understand that. But we still have to push through and keep reaching out and trying. And also there are processes. So there was an example of a student whose parent was not coming in for a disciplinary hearing recently. I'm giving limited details so that's not identifiable. But there was a student the parent was refusing to come in for disciplinary hearing, you know, something we definitely had to. So you reschedule the disciplinary hearing, but after a certain point in time, if the parent is not responsible, you still have to disciplinary hearing. We have to move forward on the consequence. We are not held in limbo if they're not connected. And that's hard to do when you're not feeling trained in that. So there's some professional development we need to do and support for our administration on that part. And that's something, I really went long-winded on this, I think, but at the beginning of it, I said there's something we're starting already, is we're already in the works of planning some professional development to do that calibration and to do that knowing the steps. And if when the parents are not engaging, what do we do then? And there are legal things we can do, and there's some we can't. We have to do both of them.
Okay, now I'll ask it.
Okay.
So this is both an accountability and a management question. We have so many talented teachers and parents, educators in our district. And we also have some who are not effective, and in very rare cases are actually detrimental to students. And as a parent, I hear this, and we also get people write us, and also I hear stories from other parents, and so I'm speaking in part as someone who learns about the district through families. How would you hold educators at all levels, but especially those with professional status, accountable for for delivering effective instruction and for treating students in the way that we would want them to be treated?
So it's really important that we all are on the same page of what the expectations are. And to have clear expectations of how we treat students, how we interact with students, what we're expecting for students. It's very clear that it's all that we're.
Someone needs to be muted online.
That's okay. So it's very important that we have very clear expectations. And then when a teacher or a staff member, doesn't necessarily be a teacher, when someone is not meeting those standards, the conversations are difficult to have, but it's very important to have from an administrator, whoever the supervisor is, manager is, that these are the expectations. Here are some supports I can give you to improve. I can send you to a professional development. I have, if it's a classroom management thing, I want you to go check out this teacher down, down the hall or whatever. They do excellent things. Just get some ideas. Let's learn from each other. How can I support you to grow? That's important. Evaluation is important to make sure that it's clear what needs to improve if something does. It's very hard to do. With evaluation, you need to make sure that you are being specific on what needs to grow, you provide support and professional development, and then you have to follow up and make sure that those things are being. When they're not, you need to have another difficult conversation and you need to address it. With non-professional status teachers, it's a little easier. Before those 3 years, you can do it non-union. After they have professional status, it does take longer and it is hard, but it can be done. I've done it as a principal. But you need to be consistent with your observations. You need to be consistent with your expectations. You need to be generous with your offer for professional development and growth and support. You need to give a little grace because if it does end with you letting someone go, that is their livelihood and it's a big deal. And you do it with grace. But in the end, it's our students that we're here for. And if the teacher is not, or the staff member, paraprofessional, administrator, whoever it is not doing what's right for the students, then they're not a good fit and they have to. An example of one of the times that I did go through that process and it was difficult to do and let somebody go with Gloucester. It always causes a very bit of a rumble. It's very easy to say that the administrator was over the top or didn't do what they needed to do. I prepared myself ready for that. And after I let someone go, of course, we can't say anything about why, right? I had a teacher come up to me and say, well, I guess it means something to get to stay. And I said, yeah, it does. Because by having somebody leave that was not being effective, even though the teachers never would say it, they knew that teacher was not being effective. By being able to stay, set the bar of what we want to be a Gloucester public school teacher, or in that case, an East Gloucester teacher. And that was a source of pride. If they wanted to stay.
I follow up on that. I feel like so much of our conversation on the school committee and with you is how do we improve teaching and learning? And curriculum has been hugely important. And I know it being in like the schedule made a huge difference. There's so many components to how you make schools work, right? And as Jeremy said, like it's public school. Everyone is welcome. And so we deal with the gamut of experiences and behaviors and all of that. And I just, and so just, it always feels to me like this one piece of like accountability is just a very, very hard one. It's one that I've always given the response that like, no, you can't do that. And so I hear what you're saying, that it's hard and it's, but do you think it is realistic for that to happen as we seek to improve?
So it is hard. What's important, it's more realistic, not that it's not realistic, we can't do it, but an important factor is to really own who gets professional status, right? It's easier to find a teacher if they're not working to guide them in another direction prior to getting professional status. Getting professional status should mean something. It should mean that you are what a Gloucester public school teacher should be. It should mean that you have made it through 3 years of strong evaluation, and we need to improve the level and numbers of evaluations that are completed with the feedback and all that. It should mean something to get to professional status. Getting professional status should be celebrated. It should be on the first day of school. I want teachers that are getting professional status to stand up. This is what we want Gloucester Public School to look like, to sound like, to be like, right? And to keep a gatekeeper of who actually gets on the bus. Because I always used to describe as a principal, you take over a school, you can't control who's on the bus when you get there, but you can control who gets on and who gets off. Getting them off is a little harder, but you definitely can control who gets on. So it's extremely important that we control who gets on the bus, particularly at that 3-year mark, 4-year mark, really, for professional status. For those that are already on the bus, there are different ways. You could try to evaluate somebody out is extremely hard. And if you don't dot an I or cross a T, you could go all the way through the process and it doesn't work. And that's frustrating. It still is important that you set the stage of what the expectations are. You also can coach a person or guide a person that they're not meeting the standard of what everybody else is, and how else can we help you? How can I guide you to be, because somebody that's not effective in their job tend to not be happy. So how can we find a way for that person? How can we coach that person to make a different choice, right? We can't force them out, fine. We can give professional status. Professional development. Right. We can give support. We can keep the expectation high. And then they have to make their choice. But I think really to set a standard of what does a Gloucester Public School teacher look like, sound like, and not look like is, I don't mean demographically. I mean, what do they do to be a teacher? And to get that status is important.
So my question hints at a little bit of a budget issue, but it's more of meeting the needs of all the students question. Given the financial limitations at hand, what types of creative ideas might you suggest to meet the educational needs of students that are not being met with the regular budget and program? In other words, here we are, budgets are tight. Don't have a lot of flexibility, but the needs are increasing. Do you have any ideas, creative ideas of how you can work within the budget that we're given by the mayor to address the needs of the kids without necessarily impacting the budget? And if you don't have no ideas, you want to talk about something that's going on, because I know there's a lot of things going on right now that haven't necessarily been reported to us. I'd be interested in hearing about that too. Because I know it's a constant battle to not be able to pay for the resources, but how do we use the staff we have in a different way, maybe, or something to that sort.
Right, so it's always, the budget's always going to be a challenge, I think. Number one, I would advocate for the manager to give us my possible.
Waving in the air, so you know.
But you have to be responsible with the money and creative at the same time. Creative meaning what programs you're supporting, and thoughtful about which programs you're supporting. To have very clear priorities of where the district needs to go. The budget really should tell the story of the district. So what's important is where we're going to spend money, right? So last year we spent some extra money in special education because that was important. We needed to build programs and make them stronger, so to meet the needs of our students. So that tells a story of we have had some behavior challenges and some students that weren't getting their needs met, and we have addressed that, right? It's not perfect. It's going to take a while because we have to then train everybody. We have to get them up and running, but that's telling the story of what's important to us. Talking a little bit about the federal money that you talked about, in being nervous about Title I funding for this year in particular. We had 6 Title I teachers among the elementary schools prior to this year. And being nervous about the amount of money that might come in and knowing that we weren't going to know until the fall. And if it didn't come in, that means letting 6 positions go at the last minute when the school year is opening or has already opened. We creatively, we took 3 of those positions out of the budget. Canceled those positions. All 3 of those teachers found different positions. That one became a special education reading teacher, one became a special education coordinator, and one became an ML teacher. So we moved them into other open spots, but that took 3 positions out of the budget. That was grant funded. It turned out we were very fortunate that we did that because when the funding came in, it was down about $160,000 in that Title I grant. So that was, to kind of try to read the tea leaves and see what's coming and be nimble about that in a timely manner because it wasn't somebody losing a job late. And then with the small amount of money we did get, we were creative by adding some tutoring into the budget to try to fit. Does not equal a teacher. I would never say that, but it is trying to get a little more tier 2 intervention where we can with what we can. And grants is a creative way to go to when their budget is in need. I'm nervous about federal and state grants going forward. But we're watching very closely and kind of seeing what's happening. We also apply for, competitive grants that aren't just the ones we get every year to try to fill some voids. It's hard to have positions on competitive grants because you don't usually get them until the year has started and you can't rely on them year to year. So to be creative, how you're spending that money.
I know Laura asked you a question about building relationships, but I want to kind of further that.
That's okay.
Can you tell me about your approach to building strong, productive relationship with educators? And how will you apply that approach if you are the next superintendent?
The first word that comes to mind is listening. I think it's really important to listen. Everybody, it sounds cliche, but I used to say this every opening day when I was principal and I say it. Everybody has a story. Everybody comes to wherever they are with a background and they have their story. There could be, so yesterday at the professional development, there was a small downtime for me. It was big for everybody else, but once it was up and running, I sat down and finally had a moment to have a little piece of a bagel, and someone caught my ear that I hadn't really had the privilege to talk to in a while, or really ever. I kind of on a high basis for that. She shared all kinds of things with me about her experience in Gloucester Public Schools, her things that she celebrated and she was proud of, things that she wanted to have that was better, things that didn't work out. And I sat and it was probably 10 minutes and I had my little bagel and I listened to her. And this morning she sent me an email and said, thank you for this. And it wasn't somebody I had really a relationship before. I mean, I knew her, I said hello, I knew her name, but that's it. But just to be there to listen, and I couldn't fix all the problems, but she felt heard. And so how do I build relationships? It's one at a time. And it's just one marble at a time. And we just listen and talk and ask questions. And next time I see that person, I'll say, how's such and such happening? And whatever we talked about, again, I won't share it at this point, but it's important. And so as superintendent, I'm not going to get to talk to everybody, right? I would love to be able to make it a practice that every new teacher comes to see me before they start, just not for an interview or to oversee or change a principal's decision, but to start a relationship, to start, hello, this is who I am. When I come in the building and, I don't want you to be nervous of me. I'm coming to say hi and how are you? Would love to start that practice. I would love to have a practice of office hours at each building, whether it be monthly or every other month, or I don't know what the cadence would be. I would have to work that out with principals, but to have some time where staff can drop in. One thing, I'm kind of proud, like I don't necessarily need to know, I would love to know what you're coming to talk to me about, but I don't necessarily need to know it because I'm confident that if you ask me a question, I don't know the answer, I'm okay saying, I'm gonna get more information and get back to you. So I would love to have it. As a principal, I pride myself on having an open door policy. Can't really do that in the superintendent's office, but if I did that at each building on a scheduled time, come in and talk to me about whatever you need to. So really reaching out and building those relationships. I would like to do that with parents too. With PTOs, with community members, I would love to have more time to get to know people in Gloucester.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. So, reading the feedback has been phenomenal. It's been wonderful to learn about you from the eyes of our community and teachers and students and parents. If there was another candidate, what would you hope they bring to the table that you see or don't see in yourself?
Good candidate. What should they bring that's not, that I don't have?
Or that you do have, that you're, I'm sort of asking two questions, I'm sorry.
Okay, can you just repeat it then?
Sure, yeah, if there was another candidate, what would you hope that they bring to the table that you bring to the table or that you don't bring to the table?
Okay. What I think that I would hope another candidate would bring to the table, that's easier, I'll get to the other one, but to bring to the table is the willingness to listen and the willingness to connect with staff members, with school committee, with community members, with parents, most importantly, wanting to connect with students, to listen and understand the experience of a student, experience of a teacher or a paraprofessional or a bus driver or anyone. I would want somebody that actively goes out and seeks that. What another candidate would bring that I don't have, honestly, is it could be somebody with previous superintendency experience. I don't have that. I don't necessarily think that's something that you need. I am hopeful that knowing the community and being an active part of the community outweighs that.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Melvin?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Amy, one of the things that you and I were involved in was the formation of the Improved Student Learning Team and looking at some data. And it's not a softball question, but it is after one session, I thought to myself, well, I was wrong on two things that I assumed about data. And so I think it's important that, or I'd like to hear you just kind of talk about that, because you led the group, and say, hey, what do we hope to gain from looking at data, and what can it do to help improve our student learning? Because I think like I said, after one session, I was like, wow, I assumed something about data that I was totally wrong on, and I think there's some real opportunity there to garner some ways that we can look at changing some things just simply by looking at the data. So
Yeah, so the committee to focus on student data and achievement came out of the strike last year. And it was one of the things we came together at a table with a group on the other side, and it sounded wonderful. And then when everything settled down, I sat down and I thought, okay, I need a group with a school committee member, myself, administrators, teachers, paraprofessionals, community members, union leadership. And I was like, oh, this is gonna be a tough thing to wield. Like, this is gonna be a lot of people, and it's gonna be people that love data and have an understanding of data, and it's gonna be people that never look at data. And how do I bring all of that into one committee or working group that is working towards the same goal, right? And so at our meeting last week or 2 weeks ago, we started with a data protocol on a data dialogue, it's called. And so we looked at our MCAS data, and very purposely we're told to make no judgments. Just look at the data and make observations. Just look at the trend of this group or trend of that group. Look at the ELA from year to year. Look at it from elementary all the way up to high school. Just look at the data and make observations. And don't say, I see this because, or I think this therefore. It was just make statements. And we broke into small groups. And there was one paraprofessional at the beginning of the meeting said, I'm here because I was kind of voluntold, but I am going to admit I am a little nervous about data. It stresses me out. That's okay. And then I had some teachers that work in data all day long, so that we had the extremes. So we broke into groups and they looked at all the data. And then we got to the point where we're gonna say, let's share out what we found. And then, they found amazing trends, and when they started to say things like, I wonder, I said, nope, we're not doing that yet. We just say, that's interesting. We will eventually, and then we were going to go to start to make predictions of why we're seeing those trends, but unfortunately we ran out of time. So that's how we're gonna open our next meeting, is look at our observations and make some predictions of why do we think we're seeing, for example, high growth in ELA in elementary, high growth in middle school, and not so high growth at the height, like what is happening there? And I don't know, we're not gonna assume what's happening, we need to find out more data, right? So we all come to the table with their own thoughts of why things are happening, but we don't really know that until we dive into it. So at our next meeting, we will dive deeper into it and we'll make predictions of why. And we'll all make different predictions for the same trend. And from that, we're gonna need more data. We're gonna need to say, well, okay, that happened last year. Well, what has happened the last 5 years or 10 years? Let's find a trend. Let's see what's is it a cohort of students? Is it also happening in math or social studies, right? So we need to follow the data where it takes us. What I hope what comes out of it, and I think that's the intent of the committee, is to pick 1 to 2 spots where we're really gonna lean in on and publicly say, we're gonna work to fix this. And we haven't discovered what it is yet. It might be math, it might be ELA, it might be social studies, it might be language acquisition. I don't know what it's gonna be. But we're gonna dive in and we're gonna find something, and then all those stakeholders that I listed trying to put all in one committee, the value of that committee and the almost, a genius is too soon to say, Bill, since we came out of it for us, but is that at the end of it, wherever we're marching, we're gonna be marching together. And the message from all of those stakeholders is that we have identified that this is important, whatever it is, we're not there yet. And we're gonna work on it as a collective group. And we're gonna have, remember I said school committee member, myself, administration, teachers, paraprofessionals, union leadership, community members, all say this is important. And when you have that common purpose, when you go back to your why, it becomes more powerful. So that's the intent. We'll see how it goes. But I talked to a lot of colleagues in other districts, and this is not something that has been tried in many places, or any place I have found yet. So we'll see. Maybe we're the pioneer of it.
Right. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other question? Yeah, if anybody has any question topic that is burning in terms of you haven't heard about a particular topic, I guess.
So, yeah, just a, so this is how it is from the brochure, but it's something I want to think of here in Gloucester. Multicultural experiences are much more than just race, language, or place of origin. And here in Gloucester, even though I think some people think of this as a sort of homogeneous community, it's really not. There's so many at my bus stop. There are people from all over the world. And I'm in a minority here. So I want to just ask about your experiences with sort of multicultural communities, and sort of what your vision is to sort of make everyone feel like they have a place and they belong here.
I apologize, I keep going back to East Gloucester, but I had 7 years there. It's a lot of my experience. One of the things when I went to East Gloucester, if you just look on the surface, it didn't necessarily look extremely diverse as far as race and whatever. But if you dig deeper, the socioeconomic diversity of East Gloucester was tremendous. It's so much so that it took my administrative assistant and school nurse at the time said, let's go for a ride, because I need to learn about the community. And I said, show me the neighborhoods that our students live in, right? And you have all the way for East Gloucester, you had all the way from people at the back shore mansions, and then we were downtown and then we had we had some that were living in shelters and we had some living everywhere. And it was really eye-opening to see all the things that people are bringing to the table, the students bringing to the table. But then to see in the classroom, it didn't matter. They all were friends. They would go to each other's house. They'd play on the playground after school. It was a community where we celebrated each other for who we were. And it was important that everybody felt part of that community and valued. Something that East Veterans does now, as part of bringing multiple communities together, is really a cool event, is their demonstration night. They have bread night. So they get to celebrate different breads from all around the world, literally like, let's break bread together, but they'll have bread from all the communities that are part of their school system or their school. Yeah, I think to celebrate diversity, to honor it, and to just, more importantly, we're all part of being from Gloucester. Yeah.
So my question's not written in a book anywhere. It's kind of an experience that I have encountered through this process. So a particular individual was part of the interview committee, and she provided some feedback to me. And the feedback was are these public information, that feedback that you got? It doesn't really matter. Anyway, the feedback was that you did tremendous in your interview as a candidate that has never been a superintendent. Right? And this is a person who is encouraging us to make the process bigger, bring in other people, right? But the comment was that you would outshine anyone that does not have the experience of a superintendent in an interview. That's their opinion. But the next comment is something that I'm thinking about, and I'm kind of asking your reaction to what I'm going to say, or make it a question, and I'll ask you that question. So the next statement was, if we were to expand this and open it up to other candidates, be very aware of an experienced superintendent that would come here knowing our state of scoring, things like that. In other words, why would someone so good come here, not being able to get a big salary because we can't afford the competitive salaries that all the very experienced superintendents get down the line where their salaries are higher, right? I mean, I think we pay our superintendent good, but it does get bigger when you go to Boston and things like that. So that comment kind of took me back, like, are you thinking that we wouldn't get any good candidates because of our test scores being so low compared to other districts? So I guess my question is, if you can respond to that, because I didn't know what to do with that other than just think about it, or to make it towards for you, do you have any concerns of being overwhelmed by the amount of need in our district and the resources that we can provide versus what we can't provide? So it's kind of two questions, like, what is your reaction to that comment? Like, do you agree with that? I mean, or to make it about you, do you think that we can give you the tools to properly execute what you want to do as superintendent, living within our budget limitations?
Okay, so the first part of my reaction to it, I guess, is an experienced superintendent coming to a district that, to be honest, is a little broken from what happened last year, right? It's a big task to lead a district to heal. It's actually tremendous. And to come in and not know who the people are, to not have previous relationships, would make it even more difficult, even for an experienced superintendent. Someone that has been a superintendent for 20 years to come in and not know the history, to not know the scars or the wounds that happened in the last 12 months, right? Would be an uphill battle. That doesn't mean it would be easy for me. the benefit for me is I know more of, I know the people. I have a relationship with the people. I honestly pride myself that I think I have trust of a lot of people. I trust a lot of people, but I think they have it in me too. And I think they have respect in me. And I think that actually gives me an advantage over somebody that has 20 years experience. That doesn't mean I could do it without support. So I would ask that the committee supports a mentoring program like NISL. I would ask that, you know, I have been fortunate in the mentors I've had throughout my career. So I would very much want to make sure I had that resource. I lean on mentors a lot and learn and grow from them. I am committed to being a lifelong learner, and I do not know everything. I spoke to my mentor as being an assistant superintendent. I spoke to my mentor this afternoon. She gave me a pep talk and gave me, I still lean on her. So I would ask for that support. I would ask for the grace that I'm learning, and I will continue to learn, and I'll make some mistakes, and I will try to learn and grow from them. But I think being an insider, in particular, in the situation that we are in right now, is a benefit to Gloucester. I think being able to hit the ground running is a benefit to Gloucester. I think when you hear the superintendent later tonight share about beginning to develop a shared purpose that happened yesterday at the professional development day, that's already pre-work that could roll into developing a common purpose, as if I was a leader. So yes, somebody could come in from far away with a bunch of years experience and want a bunch of money and want to do it the way that they have always done it because it worked in wherever they're coming from town, right? I am knowledged in the Gloucester way or community or values, and I don't think I would not have to learn. I mean, I will learn all of that, continue. I would not, I'd have a head start. Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
and I'm ready for the challenge.
Thank you so much.
Anything else from you or Bill?
Nope.
No. So I'm just gonna follow up on that with kind of a quick question. Job is a very broad job, obviously with a lot of weight on your shoulders, but there's many different responsibilities, legal, special education, you know, and operational. So, you know, I think a lot of, you know, all the learning is pretty obvious, but in terms of the role of helping kids learn better and having families love our district, what areas do you feel you would need the most support in or support to kind of fill your, you know, every superintendent was a new superintendent. So
Right.
what silo is the area you think you would need support?
Yeah, so I don't know what I don't know, right? So I feel like I would want support on all of it, to be fair. To be like you know, all the day-to-day things that come up. I would want so developing budgets, I've been fortunate. Superintendent Lemus let me be an active part of developing them the last couple of years, and really getting to know the ins and outs of that. That also means I haven't led my own though, so I would like a little additional support on that. As far as my mentorship, I would ask for support. That doesn't mean I don't feel ready to do all of that. I think operation wise, I would like ask for grace for me to learn the role, right? So I have a vague understanding that the bidding process in transportation is very complicated. So I'm going to need support learning the ins and outs of that contract. I am pretty well versed in the GAPE and the GTA contract. I am not well versed in the transportation one. I would get well versed, but I would need a little support because I hear that
bidding process is a challenge. So things like that, I would want support with, and, yeah, just overall support as far as, I am well aware that this is a step to grow, learn and grow into. And I would need support and grace to do that.
Okay. So now, would you like to make a closing statement? Sure. So, I would say that I have been, privileged to work for Gloucester Public Schools for this my 11th year. I have grown to love the community. I've grown to really appreciate the people in it. I feel like I am in a unique spot where even though we had such a difficult year last year, I think I'm in a unique spot that I could be the person to help us heal. I want to be that person. I can't do it alone, but I want to help spearhead that. So I would love to stay in Gloucester. I would love to ride out the rest of my career right here. So I'm committed to Gloucester. Yeah. Did you say just statement or there a question? Can I ask questions? Can I ask questions? Oh, yeah, you can ask questions. So what are you looking for in the next superintendent? Oh. That's a great question.
Well, I would say, someone who can help us heal. And really sort of help us put the pieces back together better than they were before. Because I think the way they were before led us where we landed. And I also, I'm looking for someone, for myself, with compassion, but also grit to do the work to get this district where it should be.
I just wrote that down, what I would say.
Did you really?
Compassion.
Yes, what did we want? So maybe that's a good way to say
Okay.
we.
So I think we, I
Yeah.
don't speak for everyone, but I think it's both. I think, you know, it's having an open door and an open heart, really, because I think this work is about hearts. But also it's about accountability and management and like, how do our students learn? How do they learn and feel safe and feel supported and grow? So that's what I'm looking for, just that. Easy.
I was gonna say the same thing, but, and I will say the same thing, I would reiterate that. Accountability is a big word for me, in all aspects, whether it be student accountability of staff or school committee or whatever it is that needs to be, discussed. I think what is really important to me is, and I heard it in some of your responses, is being available, discussing, building relationships. I think we need more of that, with families, with staff. Not just for the healing purposes, I agree 100% in that situation, but just overall, more availability, being available to address the issues that I get phone calls on, right? I mean, I know the superintendent doesn't want all the phone calls, but I sometimes feel like there's a resistance. And I would like to see that dissipate. Like, I just feel like being more hands-on. Gloucester, everybody knows everybody. If they don't know it, they're related to somebody, they were married to somebody, they know somebody. You can't do anything in this community without somebody knowing somewhere or getting on Facebook and figuring it out in about 10 minutes, right? And we love that about our community, especially when someone needs help, right? Because we all come together. I want to see a superintendent that comes into that. You know, you said you love Gloucester. That's what Gloucester is. You can go to bigger cities, Salem, PVD. They don't have what Gloucester has. I mean, we have that sense of expectations of getting answers when something goes wrong. How can this be wrong? And it continues without getting a reaction. I just want a superintendent that is available, understanding, and willing to respond to issues, even if you don't think it's that important, because usually it's important to a mother somewhere or a father somewhere or a caretaker. We have a lot of issues in this community. I work at the court. I see more than I want to see. And I know it involves a lot of the work that I do involves a lot of families in this community, and there is a lot of trauma. There is a lot of ugliness, but there's also a lot of great things too. And a superintendent that can respond to both the good and the bad. I think with more emotion is, I guess, what I'm trying to pull out more. And also to the staff needs and reactions when teachers are struggling, because we know they are, overwhelmed, behavior problems, not enough resources. I mean, it's almost like we need the therapist too, right? So, that's my hope to get, come forward. I've worked with a lot of superintendents. Only one other female superintendent. No, at the Essex Tech. I think I've hired like 9 superintendents at this point. But I noticed with females, for some reason, you can feel a little bit more emotion. I'm hoping to get that from you. So, all right.
Obviously, what they've said is, I mean, it's a big job and there's a lot of expectations for this job, and every piece of what a superintendent does is important to, to kids, to families, everybody has a different priority, right? What's important to them. I want our district to continue improving under the leadership, and I just want our district to keep improving so that our community really does know more about what's like getting creative about how we get the community more engaged and feeling about education being important and being proud of our schools. And that's hard because I know communication in general, you have to say things. It used to be 7 times before someone listened. Now it's probably like 21. But I just think kind of that consistent message of how do we build a culture where it's not just the leadership that talks to the community about how great our schools are, even though we know there are things to work on, a lot of things. But just inspiring our staff to feel proud to be here, because I'm certainly proud to be able to sit at this table and to be working, to better our schools every day. I'm proud to be of the things that we do. So to me, kind of spreading that sense of pride and commitment to making our schools the best they can be, not just person by person within our district, but as a community as well.
Great, yeah. What I think of a lot is as teachers, we're told that at some point in our day to have relationships with students. Sometimes a lot of what you said, like just little things, just a little talk, a little interest, like letting a kid know you are seen and you're valuable and you're worth it and we're here for you. So I love that you have relationships with people and you've been in the community. And that's something that I want to see even more. In Lynn, we just, lost a superintendent who was very divisive, and you could feel that all through the ranks. One of ours that we kind of rose up with, who climbed the ranks, she's our new superintendent, and immediately people who've known her through the years and had relationships with her and even surfacey hallway, moments, it makes all the difference. It gives, as a teacher, gives me a little more confidence that the superintendent knows me, knows my students, knows the type of teachers. So, I mean, I'm just looking for, you mentioned listening. People need to be heard, maybe 21 times sometimes, and I'm looking forward to the superintendent pulling the system up with you, which I think that you'll do, especially with the relationships. And I think that that's somebody that I want to see in charge and in leadership. So that's what I'm looking for. And I think I'm seeing, which I like.
Bill?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I'd say is that I didn't really know you, Amy, until, I knew you as the assistant superintendent, but until the strike last year, and really was impressed with the work you did, really appreciated getting to know you, and really was I don't know, just generally impressed with the way you handled it, the way you worked with people, your empathetic voice, you know, in trying to solve problems at the granular level. And I couldn't have been any more impressed with you. So I really appreciate that. I think the one thing that great leaders do, I think, is they set a standard that people need to meet. And I think that's important, especially in public education. Like, you know, we take the lead from the person at the top, and that filters down through all of us. And I certainly sense that you can do that. You can set a standard. I think it was Melissa and Kathy talked about, you know, we want to feel proud about the schools every day. I like to feel proud about the schools that not only I'm on the school committee for, but that my kids graduated from. And there's absolutely no reason not to do that. So, so that's it. Just someone that sets a standard and sticks to that standard. And I think you're more than capable of doing that. And I appreciate your time tonight. So that's it.
You.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you for your.
Interviews. Yes.
Yes, so now, yeah, you're done the interviewing part, which is great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I just want to say that there, as I said before, there is if people feel like they want to provide more, you know, feedback for the first time or more feedback based upon this particular interview and the questions and answers you've heard, there is a survey on the front page of gloucesterschools.com. Just have to click on it, it'll bring you to a survey. Our next step is that we meet on Monday, November 10th at 6 p.m. It'll be a special meeting, so that'll be the only agenda item where we will deliberate and vote on potentially having Amy Pasquarello assume the position of superintendent after Superintendent Lummis's retirement. Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute break. Yeah, so we'll take a 5-minute break, but thank you, everybody. There are, as I see, like 35 people online, and we have people in the audience. So thank you for being engaged in this process. I think it's very comforting, I think, if you're interviewing for superintendent to have people paying attention and interested, even though probably you communicate more with principals and teachers. It's I think it's important that the superintendent also is a present part of our community. So everybody gets a good look. Thank you. You're gonna,
Yeah, just unmute, that's all. Yeah, we're still going. We're on, we're live.
okay, we are back in session. Then the next item of business is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items they'd like to remove the consent agenda?
I move that consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. We need a roll call vote. We
Yes.
have someone participating.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Oh, exactly.
Mr. McKee,
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Ms. Weezer.
Yes.
Okay. Deliberations on education issues and the superintendent's report.
Folks can catch up to you, 1 second. Right, hello, good evening. Got a lot to update the committee and the community on. So as we say in the Gloucester Public Schools, every day matters. Everybody belongs and every student learns. So for tonight, a lot of updates from around the district. We're going to start with an important community update related, it's impacting quite a number of our Gloucester families inside and outside the schools. So the federal delay in SNAP benefits, which are essentially, which is food assistance. Also, some folks refer to them as food stamps or formerly food stamps. Really important that the city, the mayor's office especially, and also the schools are working very closely with the Open Door. So thank goodness for the Open Door and all the support they provide families and individuals across the city, actually across the region, really. So a few things just to make sure our families know about, and families can tell other families, please, is that there are a lot of services and support being provided by the Open Door. So quick trips, families can stop by Monday through Friday at the Open Door for supplies of free groceries. New clients can apply online at the foodpantry.org. The Open Door is having an extra food distribution event this Saturday. They had one last Saturday, have another one this Saturday. That's from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And families and individuals can get free milk, eggs, protein, produce, grocery staples. No appointments needed for that. We are also working to establish the mobile market to come to at least a few of our schools. I know that the principals of Beeman and East Veterans are already working, just working with them right now to schedule that. Maybe some other opportunities at our schools for our school families. And then also in-person dining is available Monday through Friday at the Open Door. So the one last piece, and we'll continue to communicate this through Facebook and through superintendent's newsletters. There's also the holiday meal, holiday baskets, which folks in the public can donate, but also families can sign up for. So they have a full hot meal on Thanksgiving holiday. That's what that graphic is there in 3 languages. So just want to make sure that we're getting that message out to families, both supporting the Open Door, but also our families, and getting it out in a lot of ways, including my announcement tonight. So Gloucester Preschool, we're a little heavy on Gloucester Preschool today because lots of going on there. So Ms. Legger's class was busy harvesting pumpkins with backyard growers at the preschool. The backyard growers, their preschool beds. And then there's on the right, Ms. Legger's class having fun with letter puzzles during the Fundations. Fundations is one of our is our phonics program that we use pre-K through 3. Used to be just K through 3, but that's part of the really important foundational learning and literacy learning that our kids are also getting in the preschool these days. Really want to thank our preschool staff who are involved in the Commonwealth Preschool Partnership Initiative. As we've reported to you, they've been doing great work in partnership with Pathways and the YMCA and Kindred Gardens for the last couple of years, 2.5 years or so. Really led by Andrea Perella, our preschool director. And they had a very special visit to Gloucester here. As I let the staff know across the whole district, more and more Gloucester being recognized publicly and privately for the good work we're doing, especially through grants that were involved in the state. And one example of that is the CPBI program. the Senate Secretary of Education, Patrick Tutwiler, who's in the left picture there. And then Early Education and Care Commissioner Amy Kershaw were both came to Gloucester to learn from us how we're doing and what we're doing and why we're doing it so well. Marty Frithson, who was the first teacher to join the CPBI program, leave her classroom at the preschool to work with the other partners and their teachers, is in the middle there. And she started a presentation about what makes Gloucester special and what's very clear in our partnership with YMCA and Pathways in kindergartens is how well we collaborate. The Secretary and Commissioner really highlighted that as something that's, that we're doing unusually well across all our CPBI programs across the state. And they wanted to learn from us really why that was. One of the key things that came up, and just I'll change that. Here's some more photos here. Why we're collaborating so much is a real alignment on what and how and why we want the students to do well, basically. So we're real care for the students and alignment that really crosses. I think it's connected because the connections in Gloucester. So folks have worked with folks before. Folks know folks, you know, in terms of like the folks in the left-hand photo here, okay? The staff have met with folks. The staff have trained with folks before. They've worked, you know, like been employed with each other before, grew up with each other. And that isn't hard. It's hard to replicate, but it's also a sort of foundation we have. They built on that. The other piece is they do like certain important structures, like they meet in person. The leaders meet in person every month. Not everyone's doing that across the CPI districts. And then another piece is just to highlight one of Marty Frithson, who I mentioned there in the red on the left. Her role really is to be like the glue across the program. So she's visiting all of them, working with the teachers on all of them, and having a person who is crossing all the program, all the different partners like that. And her purpose is to support the staff. Is something we're doing differently. So there's some ways that we are in Gloucester that separate us, but there are also some really smart, wise practices that the team has employed. So you see there, Christina Thomas, one of our veteran, 27-year veteran preschool teacher who joined CPI this year. So left her classroom again to support the teachers and staff and other programs. Andrew Perella there, Lisa Howlett, again, a veteran paraprofessional who's now an RBT working the program across the schools. Marty Frithson. Oh goodness, and I forgot the names from some of these. I'm sorry, I had them written down and I can't remember. The three folks here on the left, right here are all from kindergartens, and then on the right here, Pathways. So just really appreciate their collaboration, their hard work and dedication. And then on the right hand side, with the students, we had a classroom visit. That's myself, young student, and then Commissioner Kershaw playing in the water pool there. You'll see that I'm not. Anyway, it's later, but anyway. I just want to share two of the things that the Secretary and Commissioner said. From Secretary Pat Tutwiler. When I leave here, I'm going to float to my car. I'm so impressed and so heartened by what I'm seeing here in Gloucester. It's all about partnership. Organizations that are private, leaning in with a public entity, the schools, do something smart, sensible, and impactful for young people and their families. It's a tremendous sentiment from what he learned from us and gleaned from us. And then from Commissioner Amy Kershaw, the Gloucester Public Schools are really leading the way in how to make CPBI partnerships successful. The last thing I was going to say, but they were just really impressed with how we're doing this. I know the tremendous value of CPBI is that it impacts the students first and foremost. Students are getting services, higher quality services because we're training the staff and the other programs. And they're getting the services at the preschool that their family chooses to go to. What's happened in our community, most communities, is if students are eligible for for special education services and they're not going to our preschool, then they've got to come to our preschool or come to one of our schools to get those services. They have to either leave that preschool and go back to it during the day, or another time take another trip. So by us helping the other programs provide those services and support at their programs, it also helps families tremendously. The families start to see success in students that weren't seeing success, that builds their partnership and collaboration with the families as well. Families are much just not happier, but just they start to see progress in the students that weren't seeing. And then also the benefits to our preschool staff. They are working in ways and seeing things about them and getting really positive feedback in so many more ways than we used to, energizing them. So there's not many things. I mean, actually, there's a lot of things we do that benefits on all those 3 levels. It's just one really good example that we want to highlight. And it's not typical for the commissioner and the secretary to come to a community together. And they've done that here because of the good work. I will say that, that extends to all of our preschool staff. They do a great job. They continue to learn, continue to invest in new ways of doing things, collaborating closely and together. And CPI is just one example.
Can you remind us the grant that supports this?
Yes.
Comes into the Gloucester Public Schools. Is, and that's state funded. And we're sure that's just gonna continue. We hope.
No, in all seriousness, it's something that the governor is very, very committed to. Preschool, universal preschool. It's one of the ways they're expanding preschool and making preschool stronger. They do want to grow it. They want to learn from us in order to grow well. And that's what they were here for. So, there's never any guarantees on any of this, obviously. But no, it's something that they're very, very committed to. Another preschool thing is the playground, which I've been giving weekly updates on, is now complete. Okay, I really want to thank DPW, especially Operations Project Manager JD Curley. He's been a tremendous, I think he's been with the DPW for about a year in this role. Maybe it's more than that, I can't quite remember. But he really has just helped organize projects, communicate with us so well, our principals, our staff, on this and other projects all throughout the year. He's been just a great addition. Also, thank you to Director Mike Hale, Preschool Director Andrew Perella, and also the citizens of Gloucester. Obviously, the citizens of Gloucester are the ones who are funding the purchase of the property, and that allowed us to invest in the playground. So there you go, brand new, and even more important is this photo, or photos, I should say, which has them playing on it. So they, the first group that came down was hesitant and looked like they were totally shocked for just a few seconds, maybe 10 at the most. And they got right down to business here. So I'm just really happy to have that. Something that's been on the hoping for on the plans for a number of years, but preschool knew we couldn't really move on it until we had more. We owned the building, honestly. And then the last piece is trick or treat parade at the preschool. Just really wanted to highlight the transition students from the high school who help out every day at the preschool, helping out also with the trick or treat parade from the preschool. Moving on to Beaman. So here's their trunk or treat event at Beaman. Always lots of smiles there, lots of great community, families coming together, kids having lots of fun, lots of smiles, a little bit of candy. And there's another come more from Beaman. Plum Cove, working on their Halloween craft together. You got kindergarten, 5th graders. As I always say, love when the older students are working with younger students. That's some of the best times in school for both groups. There's an example of that doing a Halloween craft together. Plum Cove has been working with the Senior Center for the last 6 years. They make placemats for the seniors' Halloween party. So you see them all laid out there. It's at the Senior Center. And the Senior Center, they're just so thankful and appreciative of Plum Cove's partnership and the work the students do to make that special event for the seniors there at the Senior Center. So I really appreciate that. East Veterans, they had Sharktoberfest, I think I'm saying that right, which was a day dedicated to building relationships among the school and across the school. They had community circles and team building activities throughout the day. It's a couple weeks ago, but that went very, very well. And one of the great things in terms of East Veterans is a continuation of a lot of community events, community building events. We're really bringing kids together. That's one of the really positive ways that the two communities have come together to form the East Veterans community. Here we go. It's grade 4 students there in PE playing Drax's Castle. It's a collaborative team game where kids are not only trying to knock down the other team's castle, but also protect their own, and then also some fun at recess there. West Parish, West Parish kids, fourth graders are working on multiplication, division. And this week, that's been working on multiples and factors. There you see some pair work there. On the right, in Ms. Favaz's class during Wit and Wisdom, they learned about the importance of details. They're focusing on the details of small bits of information that they can see in pictures and hear in the words. And that ultimately helps them in their writing. And I remember actually teaching this same type of lesson about really honing in on details to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders to improve their writing. So it's great that in kindergarten, we're helping kids to be sort of close observers of details. It's great. Second, third graders went to Shaylin Lou to see the Littlest Mermaid, and then in Miss Amero's class there, you see a couple things: phonics partner work on the right, some calendar math in the middle, and also there's some fourth grade guest readers are on the right there. So working on some math and some literacy, and also working with the older kids as well. And O'Malley, here we are working on a couple of things. So one, academically on the left, 6th graders working on the longitudinal wave, okay, in science, and actually demonstrating it. But if that was a video, you'd see them doing the wave. And on the right, a workshop on bullying prevention and intervention. So another way that we're becoming a lot clearer with expectations and also behavior, and also what to do when things go awry at a middle school. So
That was for students?
yeah.
Did the whole school go, or was it by grade?
But I'm sure it's by grade. I think it's by grade.
By grade, but did all grades attend?
I believe so. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, but I think that's right.
Okay.
Yep, they would do it. On there, you have some O'Malley students in this room interviewing Ms. Pasquarello for perhaps her next job. And participating in that, which is great. And then also Ms. Shan's class planting trees on the O'Malley grounds there. The high school, some work here. They also have an annual Halloween parade. I don't know how many high schools do that, but it's something that high school loves. And I wouldn't ever want to try to interrupt because that'd be the end of me. And fun is okay, even if you're in high school. On the left, cabinet design student working on a project. The electric vehicle simulators, which you heard of for a while now, are installed in the refurbished and rebuilt auto shop. It's nearing completion. Very excited about. And you've all been invited to the ribbon cutting ceremony, which is that's not 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks from yesterday. Which is today, I guess. Yep. That's not open to the public, but I just want to make sure people know that we've been doing a great job on refurbishing and sort of recreating the small auto shop, which was sort of a downtrodden and former auto repair room, which had sort of fallen in disrepair, was used as a classroom, but now it's going to be used as a much more effective classroom, much better facility. Sound of Music, as we said, is coming up. So a couple weeks, November 20th, 21st, and 22nd. And then Professional Development Day. So as we began the meeting, 98 sessions, 78 led by staff, 9 by community partners, and 11 by outside consultants. On the left, you have West Parish, that's part of the staff from the substantially separate autism programs. They are meeting and working together, a time they don't get enough of. And so working and really learning about consistency and also progression sort of stuff. We have 2 lower elementary autism classes at West Parish now, and 1 upper elementary. It used to be 1 and 1. So it's really good, important to have them collaborate, get as much collaboration time as possible, get support. It's one of the things they were doing yesterday. On the right, you have strengthening writing instruction, Wit and Wisdom. You've heard that from the elementary principals, and also improved writing instruction at O'Malley as well. One of the groups here I want to point out, this is 3rd grade team from East Veterans, co-teaching team, and they're also involved in that and working on and planning both their co-teaching work, but also the work on strengthening writing instruction. We're working on across elementary schools. On the left, you have our clinical staff is off from yesterday. Sort of a small fraction of what was happening yesterday. Our clinical staff in a session about addressing anxiety and also on how that can be the cause of selective mutism and responses and strategies for supporting students who are impacted by both. And on the right, we have our K-12 music educators. They're across all of our schools. They're essentially singleton teachers in each school and giving them a chance to, they've been working on alignment and programming. And so this is a good chance to yesterday to do that face to face. So I appreciate that. And then this is one thing actually Amy mentioned earlier tonight. Just continue to work on defining our common purpose. And so yesterday, through a AI supported survey engine, asked a couple of questions of staff. First question up here in the bold, sorry, it's not too that organized. Which 3 words best describe the culture among colleagues you want in our schools? So the notion that we build the culture. Adults who build the culture in our schools, we're all responsible for it. We all have, really positive, can have really positive impact on it, but we define it. And the most prevalent themes are collaborative, supportive, and respectful culture among colleagues in schools. And then and part of that is until you're clear about it, people may, and really concrete about it, people may be thinking different things, none of them, negative, but the fact that you want to have some clear alignment so you all work towards the same end. And it's clear what kind of culture we want to build here in our schools. And then what should Gloucester schools be known for the wider community? So again, the most common themes are inclusivity and community, academic excellence and rigor, and support professionals. Okay. Just an insight to what staff were thinking yesterday. That's the update for tonight. Questions? Comments?
It's impressive.
Yeah.
You mentioned you had the melt food truck at the professional development.
It's also true. We had the melt food truck, which was a big hit. In fact, it was such a big hit, the line was very long. And so we have to think of another alternative, an additional truck perhaps next year. I don't know the economics of any of that, but people, it was purchase your own. I'm not sure what it takes to get a food truck there, but we could definitely use more than one. Yeah, but people who know it. I made a mistake of bringing around lunch. So then the next, anything else before I can transition to enrollment update? Okay, great, keep going. So this, we do the enrollment update every year. There are 2 times during the year that all schools report enrollment to DESE, October 1, and then I want to say April 1, but I might have that wrong. I'm pretty sure it's April 1. And this is essentially the October 1 data is our official enrollment for the year. It's reported on the DESE website. So I'll just give you some highlights here. Our Gloucester schools enrollment remain steady still. I'll talk about a few decreases here and there, okay? Our total enrollment decreased by 59 students in 2,781. That is a decrease. It's not a very large one. We have had two decreases in a row. Last year's decrease was smaller than that. So we want to keep an eye on that. Elementary enrollment declined by 15 students total. That's not much at all. And 3 of our schools increased in enrollment, and just 1 West Parish decreased by 23 students. That's coming off of West Parish's high ever. So last year was the largest enrollment West Parish ever had. So sorry about the typo there. I spelled enrollment wrong. But coming up, that's so that they're down a little bit, but that's from their highest ever. Kindergarten enrollment declined by 230 from 230 students to 213 this year. It's a big chunk where we see that decline, 59 students right there. Enrollment in O'Malley declined by 25 students to 594. That's the first significant change, really, and it's been changed down since COVID for O'Malley. GHS 12th grade is the same size as last year's 12th grade, and GHS enrollment's flat. It declined by 8 students to 770 students. One of the interesting pieces here is, and this may account for some of the change that we're seeing, is enrollment of multilingual learners has stopped growing in the past 2 years. And this year was the first time it declined since it started growing rapidly about 10 years ago. It's at 11 students. It declined by 11 students. Again, it's a small number, but it hasn't declined for a long time. I'll show you those specifics in a moment. But that's a part of and that's for lots of reasons, you know, I can speculate, but you know, I'm sure part of it is sort of the climate of the country these days. And the effort to reduce immigration. But that's conjecture on my part. I don't know that for sure. So let's get into some of the
Can I
numbers
ask you a
here.
question on the price line?
Yeah, sure.
So if GHS enrollment declined 8 students to 770 students, so that means you've identified 8 students that were there last year that's not here?
No,
or
because last year
that's
there were
smaller?
778 students total last year in the 4 grades. And this year there's 770.
So it's just overall?
Yeah, so.
So that means like moved out?
Yeah,
or-
oh, yeah, it's move in, move out, yeah. And I'll actually show some of that.
We could have went to Essex Tag.
Yeah, well, not once they're in high school, they don't depart, they're really very, you know, they don't go, they go right into ninth, not many
Yeah.
leave at ninth, they could go, they move away.
Yeah,
They move away, go to different schools or stuff, but they're ins and outs always.
okay. I didn't know if it was just certain students
No,
who
no,
were
no, that-
identified or it was just.
No, that's
overall.
total numbers, yeah.
And I'm only using that as an example.
Yeah, no problem. So here you see a couple things here. So on the right hand side, the total enrollment for each school. Okay, just for this current year, you see also enrollment by grade. Okay. You know, one thing that's notable is Beam has 46 students in kindergarten across 3 grades. That's kind of, let's average 15. At the same time, you know, if you divide that into 2 classes, it's 23 students, that's too many, okay? So, you know, it's at that point where it's like, like, you know, that's not, I mean, it's an obvious step not to cut into 2. We don't ever want 23 in kindergarten, it happens on a rare occasion, okay? East Veterans has about 18 and 19. Plumco has 20. In West Paris, if I'm doing this right, divide by 3, I think that's 18. You know, so they're, you know, Plumco's a little bit higher, but those are very good kindergarten classroom sizes, and yeah, can't really make much adjustment there. And so you see, you know, for the most part, you know, our class sizes are sort of 18 to 20. There are some exceptions there. And I'm talking about elementary here. So then there's cohorts, talk more about cohorts in a moment, okay, but these are also cohorts, meaning if you follow the color one year to the next, you know, you're hoping for either stability or growth there. So let me move on to that. I'll talk more about cohorts in a moment. This is our enrollment since FY16. Okay, so again, you know, we're at 2040 last year, lost 59 students this year. That's a little bit lower than we've had. The comparable year was the COVID year, first COVID year. But you see all these years are all 2,800 and really 40 plus or minus some, a little dip this past year. Those dips happen, but it's something to keep an eye on, you know, really looking here for patterns, okay? The only pattern we've seen so far is, really for 2 years is, a slight decline, 24 from this year to this year, 24 down, and then 59 from here to here, okay? And then also EL learners as well. This is just a bar graph and the data I already showed you in terms of per grade. This is 5 and 10 year enrollment history. I'll highlight a few things. Is that if you look at the change in 10 years for elementary, K to 5, there's essentially no change. There's ups and downs, of course, but even 10 years ago, we were within 19 students of what we are right now. Okay. K to 5 years at 52. Remember that changes each year because, you know, the following year can be a decrease. Is that because, you know, you're comparing to a specific year, and then the 1 year change at elementary was minus 15. Okay. You know, one noticeable here is preschool's at 90 this year, instead of 101 or more. Part of that is the nature of the substantially separate preschool classrooms and the numbers we have. Okay, and also we are able to. The CPBI is having some effect. Hard to know what this is because students who would come to our program and be enrolled in our program and can stay at the program they're already at and get services there. Okay, like even if they're higher need. Typically, if they're a higher need, they come to our program. But now they're hiring, they have potential to stay at one of the 3 partners. not having too much, but that has the possibility now, which is a good thing, because part of the advantage of CPI is that we have limited space at the preschool, and we're maxing it out. This will grow during the course of the year. But anyways, that's just, you know, a difference we've seen. And then we're mailing down 25.
I have a question related to the preschool and
Sure.
enrollment. So how do the students we're servicing outside of our buildings, but are being served by our educators? How does that factor into
It
enrollment?
doesn't factor into this enrollment. It
But
factors,
does it factor into like chapter 78, where you talk about percent of students receiving special education services?
they are definitely identified as that. I don't know that, the answer to that question exactly.
Just,
And so I'll find out, we can talk about that at BF, but I don't, I'm just gonna pen this right. Thank you. Here. And we call that, we term those services only students.
Okay.
Because they're not enrolled in a classroom. And your question, how do they factor into chapter 7?
make sure they're factored into chapter 7.
As you can tell, I told all my friends to go home, so I don't have all the answers tonight. Any other questions on this slide?
No.
It's just longitudinal data by grade, which, you know, it's a report, but nothing that specifically to highlight on that. And then here's the cohort things I want to talk about. So the grade cohorts, and if you get cohort, you're going from 24 in the earlier grade, 24, 25 to 25, 26 in the later grades, so you're going diagonally. The gray means that they essentially stay the same, okay? The red means they decreased by 15 students or more. And the green means they increased. Talk a little bit more about that in a moment, especially the high school. You know, pretty stable. Enrollment for 8th grade to 9th grade typically includes ins and outs as students, and then this is sort of speaks to one of your questions, Melissa. So if we go 8th to 9th, you see it typically goes up some. There's lots of reasons for that. There are lots of things happening from 8th to 9th. So one thing that happens 8th and 9th is that kids go to Essex Tech or other private parochial schools, okay? We know typically Essex Tech is 25 a year, okay? But then also other students come in for the first time. But you also have holdover students who are still in 9th grade. Okay, so they're in 9th grade, they didn't accrue enough credits to move to 10th grade. So they're still in 9th grade, but they're here for the second year. Okay, I can talk about that a little bit more to give you a good example of that in a moment. And then 5th to 6th is all, I just put that here because it's always it's a key transition grade. We always look at it in terms of how stable are we being. There's still maybe the same thing of there is the retention like in 9th grade, but there are ins and outs. So if you go from say here 213 students in 24, 210 in 25 in 6th grade, doesn't mean it's the same exact students, it's a similar number. Okay. So this is the first really significant drop we've seen. I mean, that's 18 students. Okay, we haven't seen that before in O'Malley. I could guess, but it's hard to know that some of the press and reports about O'Malley, which as you know, I feel like were not fully accurate. Okay, they weren't. Not that it wasn't a challenge. We're clear about it being a challenge. You know, that's sure for sure, but I'm sure that probably had some impact on it. Okay.
But do you track dropout rates too, though, right?
We do,
So we have
yeah.
dropouts every year, and that could.
Not for only high school.
Oh, in high
Oh
school.
yeah, only high school. Yeah, yeah. Our dropout rate isn't very significant. There's more churn and ins and outs than there are dropouts really.
Okay.
And then this is longitudinal cohort data. It's just a few things to show. Again, this is over many years. If you follow color, you're following the same cohort of students down. Okay. I talked about the first bullet, grade 6 to 8 is pretty steady always. Won't get to O'Malley, they stick pretty firmly. I think the increase in enrollment grade 8 to 9 is pretty typical, but again, I just talked about the reasons for that. There's churn 8 to 9, but typically the number stays the same. Decrease enrollment in cohorts 9 to 10 and 10 to 11. Then enrollment often increases in grade 11 to 12. that, if you think about it, there's some attrition along the way. There's also, you might have a person who is supposed to be 11th grader, be a 10th grader. But that happens, that sort of, not progressing happens in high school. And then you can have kids pile up in 12th grade, meaning, they're 12th graders for 2 years, they're still being counted. So that's why you see that enrollment often increase in grade 11 and 12. Didn't necessarily that more new kids have come in. It might be kids who are needing more time, 5 years. That's the report for tonight. I think we'll always do this. Oh, no, sorry, no, that's not the report. We're only part through. There's education students. So we have not looked into this yet, but there's an increase in special education students from last year, pretty significant one. I have not looked at that. We will look at it more to understand that. Sometimes you go down in special education students because of the particular nature of 12th grade class. So it could be that, honestly, there wasn't many departures, sort of thing. But we'll look into that more. That's just over the years, represented graphically. This one had lingual learners, so this is what I was talking about is, annual increases of, 15 or more, or at least 10 or more, for 10 plus years, for 11 years. Last year only increased of 6, and this year a decrease of 11. So that means that our population of EL learners are above 10%. That's just a few years ago. But yeah, so that's just sort of observing that. And then there's, again, you can see, just a increase, year over year graphically, and then stabilization and perhaps a small decline. It could go up again next year, hard to know. This multilingual learner enrollment by school. The obvious piece of East Veterans is the highest of anybody, even though it's not, it's about 40% of the size of JHS. And then Beeman also has a high number as well, school size, more than O'Malley. And then always in terms of school choice, so students are choosing into or out of Gloucester, that comes later in the year as finalized. As I tell you every year, it's finalized in January. We'll update the school committee every year those numbers. Yeah, that's the whole report.
Thank you. Okay, there have been no subcommittees meetings since our last meeting, so there are no subcommittee reports, and we have one item for action, acceptance of grants. And I move that we accept the fiscal year 2026 FC 0311 supporting students grant in the amount of $69,910.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. McKeon,
Yes.
Chairperson Clancy,
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Ms. Weaver.
Yes.
We are tabling the policy, the first reading of the policy that's listed under discussion, other communication, until our next meeting.
Bill, were you staying up for that?
Sure.
Seriously, Bill.
Okay, so that concludes our business for tonight. Thank you, everybody who joined us online and in person. And have a good, yeah, we're gonna move to adjourn. Take it away.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Thanks.
Roll call.
Mr. Melvin,
Yes.
Mr. McKean, Chairperson Clancy.
Yes.
Ms. Prince.
Yes.
Ms. Weaver.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Good night.